Let me ask you something straight. What is stealing your focus right now? Not later, not next week. I mean right now. What is robbing your divine attention? Some of you are not where you want to be, not because you're not smart, not because you're not gifted, not because you're not anointed, but because you are distracted. And distraction is a decision. Let's talk real. Focus is the secret weapon of the successful. Focus is the difference between people who watch history happen and people who make history happen. You don't need more talent. You need more clarity. You need more conviction. You need more consistency. Every time you chase another idea, compare your life to someone else's highlight reel, or give in to shiny object syndrome, you're giving up ground God called you to claim. God is not obligated to bless your distractions, but He is committed to prosper your purpose. See, most people don't realize that focus is a form of worship. When you focus, you're saying, God, I trust what you gave me is enough. You're saying, I will not look to the left or to the right. I will steward what's in front of me until it multiplies. You want success? Then stop renting your attention to every ping, post, and opinion. Shut out the noise so you can hear the instruction. Shut down the fear so you can obey the assignment. Let me tell you something. The enemy doesn't need to destroy you. All he has to do is distract you. Focus is a force. Focus is fire. Focus creates favor because God blesses those who walk in alignment, not those who dabble in everything. You are too valuable to live distracted. You are too called to live confused. You are too anointed to live avera. Focus magnifies progress. It takes what is blurry and makes it clear. It takes what is distant and draws it closer. Most people don't lack ability, they lack focus. You can have all the talent in the world, but if your attention is scattered, your results will be too. The reason many never walk in their full potential isn't because they're not chosen, not because they're not capable, but because they never committed to one direction long enough for the seeds to grow into fruit. They bounce from thing to thing, idea to idea, distracted by what's loud and missing what's divine. Focus is the difference between average and extraordinary. It's the power to block out what doesn't matter so you can lock in on what does. Think about a magnifying glass. On a sunny day, if you hold it over a leaf and keep it still, the sun's rays become so concentrated that they ignite fire. The sun didn't change, the leaf didn't change, the focus changed everything. That's exactly how your life works. When your energy, time, and mind are scattered, you get scattered results. When you bring them into alignment under a single aim, a single mission, a single vision, you create fire. Progress becomes acceleration. You stop being busy and start being productive. You stop reacting and start creating. That's the shift. You weren't created to chase everything. You were created to master something. But mastery doesn't happen without focus. Every champion, every world-class leader, every kingdom entrepreneur that you admire has one thing in common. They chose focus. They didn't try to be good at 10 things. They became excellent at one thing. And that one thing opened doors to everything else. If you don't choose your focus, the world will choose it for you. And guess what? The world wants your focus on consumption, not creation. On scrolling, not building. On fear, not faith. So if you want to rise, you have to fight for your focus. You have to say no to the good so you can say yes to the great. You have to cancel distractions like they're enemies of your destiny, because they are. Every moment you spend scattered is a moment stolen from your purpose. Every distraction you entertain is a delay you allow. Focus is not natural, it's intentional. You have to train your mind to stay locked in. You have to build systems around your life that keep you centered. You have to structure your environment to protect your energy, because focus is fragile. You can't leave it to chance. If you're serious about progress, you have to treat focus like it's gold. You guard it. You schedule it. You fight for it. Most people think the key to success is doing more, but real progress is about doing less, better. It's about deep work, not wide work. It's about depth, not distraction. When you focus, you go deeper. And depth is where the results are. Depth is where transformation happens. Depth is where the impact lies. And let's be clear, focus is not just about productivity, it's about alignment. When you focus, you begin to live in rhythm with your assignment. You're no longer reacting to life, you're leading it. You start to make intentional moves that match your identity. Your decisions become rooted in purpose, not pressure. Your energy becomes aligned with eternity, not emotion. And that's where real progress begins, not in the rush, not in the chaos, but in the clarity that comes from focus. Distraction is destiny's enemy. It doesn't come with noise and warning signs. It comes subtly, dressed in urgency, wrapped in what seems important, disguised as opportunity. But in reality, distraction is designed to pull you just far enough off course that you never arrive at your divine destination. Most people don't derail their calling by making terrible decisions. They miss their destiny because they made unaligned decisions. They said yes to what looked good, but not what was God. They got caught in activity and lost authority. Distraction doesn't always show up as sin. It often shows up as excess. Too much information, too many opinions, too many obligations that have nothing to do with your assignment. And when you live distracted, you begin to confuse motion with progress. You feel busy, but you're not building. You're working hard, but not working aligned. You're responding to everything around you while neglecting the voice within you. Distraction costs more than time. It costs energy, clarity, creativity, obedience, and purpose. Every time you give your attention to something that doesn't match your calling, you weaken your effectiveness. You dilute your power. You break your own rhythm. And when your rhythm breaks, your results suffer. You get frustrated, confused, double-minded, constantly pivoting but never planting. You start building things God didn't ask for, pursuing things He didn't promise, solving problems He didn't assign. It's a slow drift away from destiny, not because of rebellion, but because of distraction. The enemy knows he can't steal your purpose, but if he can steal your focus, he doesn't need to. A distracted person is as ineffective as a disobedient one. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways, and instability is the breeding ground for mediocrity. Your calling requires consistency, and consistency cannot live in a distracted soul. This is why discernment is critical. You have to know the difference between what is urgent and what is important, between what is for now and what is forever, between what's yours and what's just noise. You have to develop the strength to stay centered when the world is pulling you in every direction. That strength doesn't come from motivation. It comes from conviction. You have to know your why so deeply that distractions lose their power. You have to be rooted in your identity so firmly that the opinions of people don't move you. You have to guard your gates, your eyes, your ears, your thoughts, because every distraction starts with access. What are you letting in that has no place in your assignment? What conversations are you entertaining that are sowing confusion into your clarity? What voices are you following that have no authority over your future? Distraction can come in the form of relationships too. Not everyone who has access to you is assigned to you. Some people are good people, but they're not your people. Some opportunities are big, but they're not your blessing. Some platforms look powerful, but they're not part of your purpose. You have to learn to say no without guilt, delay without apology, protect your vision without compromise. Your destiny is too important to be diluted. You weren't created to be everywhere. You were created to be effective right where you're planted. The power of focus is not just about what you're looking at. It's about what you're looking away from. Distraction wants to drain you, detour you, delay you, and discourage you. It wants to wear you down just enough that you settle for survival when you were made to lead. You have to choose attention over ambition, obedience over options, vision over volume. The clearer your assignment becomes, the easier it is to identify the distractions. And the more distractions you eliminate, the more your destiny accelerates. Purpose requires precision. When something has purpose, it cannot function in randomness. It must be aimed, it must be focused, and it must be aligned with intent. Purpose is not something you stumble into by accident. It is something you walk into by design. You don't fulfill purpose by trying everything. You fulfill it by committing to the right thing. But commitment cannot exist without clarity, and clarity cannot exist without precision. Precision means narrowing your attention, refining your strategy, cutting away what does not serve the mission. It means recognizing that not every open door is an assignment, not every invitation is a mission, and not every opportunity is a calling. The higher the purpose, the more narrow the focus must be. You were not created to do everything. You were created to do something significant. But significance is not birthed in a scattered life. Significance is birthed in discipline, in intention, in precision. Think of a surgeon performing a critical operation. The tools must be sharp. The hand must be steady. The attention must be undivided. Because one wrong move, one small distraction, one careless decision could affect everything. That's how your purpose works. It's surgical. It requires accuracy. It requires obedience to the blueprint. You can't afford to live your life guessing. You can't afford to keep experimenting with your calling. You need strategy. You need structure. You need steps. Because purpose is not just spiritual, it's practical. Precision shows up in how you use your time. Are you investing hours in things that build your future, or are you spending your days chasing validation? Precision shows up in your environment. Are you surrounded by people who sharpen your focus or cloud your vision? Precision shows up in your habits. Are your daily disciplines moving you in the direction of your assignment, or are they slowly distracting you from it? Every time you say yes to something outside your calling, you're saying no to something within it. Precision is not about being perfect, it's about being pointed. It's about living on purpose, not on autopilot. It's about doing less with more intention, rather than doing more with no direction. The enemy of purpose isn't always evil, it's often excess. Too many goals, too many inputs, too many expectations, too many detours. And the more you spread yourself thin, the less impact you make where it matters. Precision says, this is where I'm going. This is what I'm called to do. And I will not be moved by pressure, by people, or by distraction. It's not about arrogance, it's about alignment. When you understand your purpose, you become dangerous to mediocrity. You stop settling for average. You stop copying what works for others. You start building what's been assigned to you. You start designing a life that matches your divine blueprint, and it begins with clarity. Clarity gives you permission to say no. It frees you from comparison. It delivers you from the temptation to chase everything. It empowers you to stand in your lane and master it. Precision gives your life edge. It gives your time value. It gives your energy purpose. And when you begin to move with that level of focus, you begin to operate in a level of favor. Because God is not obligated to bless confusion, but he will always breathe on obedience. Precision turns potential into power. It turns ideas into execution. It turns dreams into system. And it requires you to let go of comfort, let go of distraction, let go of being everywhere, and start showing up exactly where you're supposed to be. Clarity eliminates confusion. When your vision becomes clear, decisions become easier. The fog begins to lift and the chaos starts to calm. Confusion thrives in the absence of clarity. It multiplies when you try to move without a map, when you live by reaction instead of intention. Most people don't fail because they lack ambition. They fail because they lack clarity. They don't know what they truly want, so they chase everything that looks good and miss what's actually aligned. When clarity is absent, energy leaks. You pour effort into places that look productive but lead nowhere. You fill your schedule with movement but not meaning. You say yes too often because you don't have a firm enough why to say no. You feel tired not because you're doing too much, but because what you're doing lacks alignment. Clarity creates boundaries. It sets the tone for your time, your focus, your relationships, your values. It draws a line around what matters most and gives you permission to stop negotiating with distractions. Clarity doesn't make the journey easier, it makes it more intentional. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. The obstacles didn't disappear, but now you can see where they are. You stop bumping into things and you start navigating with direction. Clarity also creates confidence. The clearer your path becomes, the more boldly you can walk in it. Doubt loses its grip when your steps are rooted in purpose. Fear begins to fade when your direction becomes undeniable. You no longer need validation from others when you know your assignment. You no longer need applause when you have assurance. Clarity frees you from confusion by giving you the ability to define your next move. It turns vague ideas into strategic actions. It translates purpose into plans. It transforms ambition into accuracy. Confusion asks, should I do this? Clarity answers, this is exactly what I must do now. Confusion says, what if I'm wrong? Clarity says, I'm aligned and I'm committed. You gain clarity by spending time in stillness, not by speeding through life. You find clarity when you stop long enough to hear, to reflect, to realign. Clarity comes when you remove the noise, not when you add more input. Sometimes the clarity you need doesn't come from learning something new, but from unlearning what's not true. From letting go of the false narratives, the people-pleasing, the societal timelines that never matched your calling in the first place. It comes from revisiting your original why and anchoring yourself in it. When clarity shows up, confusion loses authority. You begin to build not just because you can, but because you must. You begin to say no with discipline and say yes with conviction. You begin to filter your efforts through a lens of purpose instead of pressure. Clarity also creates consistency. When you know what you're aiming for, you show up more steadily. You stop pausing every time things get hard. You stop detouring every time something else looks easier. You understand that what you're building is worth the repetition, worth the discipline, worth the resistance. You don't just work harder, you work smarter, because now your work is informed by direction. And even when things don't go according to plan, you're able to pivot without panic. Because clarity isn't just about knowing your route, it's about knowing your reason. It gives your effort meaning. It gives your progress weight. It gives your leadership depth. And it allows you to build a life that is intentional instead of accidental, deliberate instead of desperate, focused instead of fragmented. Faith requires focus. It's not enough to believe in something abstract. You have to be focused on what you believe in, or that belief gets buried beneath distraction and doubt. Faith is not passive. It's not a vague feeling that everything will somehow work out. Real faith is active, intentional, and laser-focused. It has direction, it has discipline, it has clarity. Without focus, your faith will drift. You'll start to believe one thing in the morning and something else by evening. You'll declare your vision one day and question it the next. You'll say you're trusting God, but spend most of your energy trying to control what He already promised. Focus takes your faith from theory to action. It moves you from hope to obedience. It sharpens your spiritual hearing so you can follow instructions, not impulses. In Scripture, Jesus focused. He didn't entertain every opportunity, respond to every critic, or engage every demand. He set his face like flint toward Jerusalem. He stayed focused on the cross, not the crowd. He was never distracted by what was urgent. He was led by what was eternal. That's the pattern. Faith requires a deep alignment with what God has spoken, not what the world is shouting. You cannot live by faith and be guided by distraction at the same time. The moment you take your eyes off the promise, the pressure starts to speak louder. The moment you focus on what's missing instead of what's coming, your faith begins to fracture. Focus reminds your spirit of what your flesh wants to forget. It brings your mind back to the mission when your emotions want to escape the process. Faith requires you to stay fixed on the unseen. That means there will be moments when nothing looks like it's working, when the numbers don't add up, when the doors aren't opening, and yet you keep building, sowing, believing, not because of what you see, but because of what you heard. Focus turns your faith into fuel. It gives you the strength to keep showing up when your feelings say stop. It keeps your prayers consistent. It keeps your actions aligned. Your heart anchored. Focused faith doesn't need confirmation, it needs conviction. And that conviction is what carries you through delays, through opposition, through disappointment. It's easy to believe when everything's going right. But focused faith believes when the soil is dry, when the vision is slow, when the answers are silent. Focus doesn't make the process shorter, but it makes the process, because faith without focus leads to frustration. You'll start something and never finish. You'll pursue your calling, but keep getting pulled off course. You'll start trusting God until it gets hard, and then you'll start looking for the nearest exit. But when your faith is focused, you stop needing plan B. You stop flirting with distractions. You stop second guessing every step. You commit. You dig in. You align your routine with your revelation. You design your day around your destiny. You don't just talk about faith, you live it. You apply it to your finances, your business, your purpose, your relationships. And as your focus sharpens, your faith matures. You begin to expect results, not because of your effort, but because of your obedience. You begin to experience peace in the process, not because it's easy, but because you're anchored. You start to understand that focused faith doesn't avoid resistance. It grows through it. That's where your strength is developed. That's where your character is shaped. That's where your capacity is expanded. Faith requires focus because distraction weakens belief. Every time you divide your attention, you dilute your agreement with what God said. Every time you entertain fear, you feed doubt. But when you choose to focus, you silence the noise. You tune into the promise. You discipline your decisions to match your destiny. You build what doesn't yet exist as if it's already finished because your focus is on the one who never fails. Kingdom success follows kingdom order. You can't expect divine results while living by a disorderly system. There's a reason why alignment always precedes acceleration. Before anything multiplies, it must first be in order. In the kingdom, order is not about control. It's about structure that allows for overflow. It's the invisible arrangement that supports visible success. Many people are praying for breakthroughs, but ignoring the very order that creates the capacity to receive what they've been asking for. The principles of the kingdom don't bend to emotion. They respond to alignment. You can't be out of position and still expect provision to flow consistently. If the foundation is off, the blessing will crush what it was supposed to build. Order is not glamorous, but it's necessary. You can't skip structure and think faith will compensate. Even miracles in the Bible follow divine order. The loaves and fishes multiplied only after the people sat down in groups. The water turned to wine only after the jars were filled to the brim. Order prepares the space for what God wants to fill. If you want kingdom-level results in your business, in your finances, in your relationships, then the kingdom must be first, not just in words, but in practice. Not just on Sunday, but in systems. Seek first the kingdom and all these things will be added. That's not just a verse, it's a strategy. When God is first, everything else finds its place. But when God is somewhere on the list, everything starts to drift. Disorder creates anxiety, fatigue, mismanagement, and confusion. When your life is out of order, even good things start to feel heavy. Even blessings feel like burdens. Because what was meant to flow now has to be forced. And anything you have to force to keep isn't from the kingdom, it's from your own hands. There is peace in order. There is flow in order. There is rhythm in order. That's why the enemy's goal is to disrupt your order, not necessarily by making you bad, but by making you busy. Too busy to pray, too distracted to reflect, too overwhelmed to build intentionally. When your day is driven by urgency instead of purpose, order disappears. When your priorities are determined by other people's emergencies, order dissolves. Kingdom success is built on the discipline of order. That means your calendar reflects your value. Your habits reflect your identity. Your business reflects your assignment. You stop chasing what you're not called to because you understand that alignment produces more than ambition ever will. In the kingdom, success is not just about results. It's about order, stewardship, faithfulness, and fruit. Fruit doesn't grow from chaos. It grows from roots. And roots require deep, ordered soil. Some people are frustrated not because they're not working hard, but because they're working out of order. They're trying to reap where they haven't sown, trying to lead without serving, trying to profit without providing value, trying to multiply what hasn't even been managed. The kingdom doesn't work like that. God blesses what is aligned. When the tabernacle was in order, his glory filled it. When the temple was dedicated in the right sequence, his fire consumed the altar. When the Ark of the Covenant was returned properly, David danced before the Lord. Kingdom order produces kingdom presence. And presence is what transforms every environment, every business, every relationship. If you want lasting success, you must build according to the pattern. Don't copy culture, follow kingdom. Culture says hustle, kingdom says prioritize. Culture says do more, kingdom says align more. Culture says grind harder, kingdom says obey deeper. Success in the kingdom is not reserved for the lucky, the loud, or the large. It's for those who walk in order, not perfect, but submitted, not flawless, but aligned. When your heart, your mind, and your strategy come into agreement with heaven's pattern, favor finds you, doors open for you, and increase becomes your default setting. So here's the truth. Your future doesn't respond to feelings, it responds to focus. God didn't design you for distraction, for disorder, or for scattered energy. He designed you with precision, for clarity, for movement that matches your mission. You've been given a purpose that demands your full attention, a vision that won't manifest through confusion, and a calling that requires discipline, alignment, and relentless faith. You don't need another opinion. You need to return to the original instruction. You don't need more motivation. You need kingdom order. You don't need to do everything. You need to do the one thing God has anointed you to do, and do it with fire, with focus, with obedience. Every breakthrough you're waiting on is already waiting on your focus. Every level you're praying for is already tied to your alignment. This is not the time to scroll, to stall, to second guess. It's time to lock in. Because when you focus, you multiply. When you align, you accelerate. When you move in kingdom order, you don't chase success. Success finds you. So take back your attention, guard your mind, eliminate the noise, refuse the detours, fix your eyes forward, and build what God told you to build with clarity, with boldness, with precision, with faith, and with the unshakable focus of someone who knows that destiny is not for the distracted. It's for the disciplined. It's time to focus.